SITREP World Briefing for June 29, 2026. The United States and Iran agreed on Sunday to stand down after a new exchange of strikes and to resume talks, a step that Washington presented as an effort to restore a ceasefire that had come under immediate pressure over the weekend. Officials in Washington and Tehran moved back toward negotiations after accusing each other of violating the truce. The agreement to halt tit-for-tat attacks matters well beyond the bilateral relationship because the latest confrontation had already spilled into a wider Middle East war framework and raised doubts about whether any ceasefire could hold for more than a few hours. The renewed talks are expected to focus on preventing another rapid cycle of retaliation. Pakistani forces launched airstrikes in Afghanistan near the border on Sunday, and Afghan officials said the attacks killed dozens of civilians. Pakistan said it had targeted militants, while the Taliban government in Kabul said non-combatants were among the dead, producing another dispute over military action along one of the region's contested frontiers and putting pressure on ties between Islamabad and the Afghan authorities. The strikes highlight the security situation along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, where Islamabad has said militant groups use Afghan territory to stage or support attacks, and the Taliban has rejected those claims or accused Pakistan of violating Afghan sovereignty. Civilian deaths in border districts carry political weight for both governments because they deepen local anger, complicate any intelligence or security coordination, and raise the risk that cross-border counterterrorism operations will trigger broader diplomatic and military confrontation. French President Emmanuel Macron was set to receive the Sultan of Oman at the Élysée Palace in Paris on Monday, opening a two-day visit expected to center on regional security and the Strait of Hormuz. The meeting was presented as the Gulf ruler's first official visit to France, and discussions were expected to include proposals tied to the toll-free reopening of the narrow waterway, a passage that carries a large share of the world's seaborne oil and liquefied natural gas shipments. The planned talks highlighted Oman's role as a mediator in Gulf diplomacy and France's effort to stay engaged in a crisis that affects global energy flows, shipping insurance costs, and European economic security. The Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman is one of the world's strategically sensitive choke points, and any arrangement aimed at keeping commercial traffic moving without added fees or military escalation would carry significance beyond the Gulf. Search teams in Venezuela continued digging through quake-damaged areas on June 29th as the critical 72-hour window for finding survivors began to close. The death toll was reported to be nearing 1,500, turning the operation from an urgent search for the living into an effort to recover bodies. In major earthquakes, those first 3 days are widely regarded as the most important period for locating people trapped under collapsed structures, which has raised the urgency around every remaining rescue effort in affected Venezuelan towns and neighborhoods. The rescue operation has also become a political test for the Venezuelan state, with residents in quake-affected areas directing anger at the official response and accusing authorities of failing to move quickly enough to locate survivors and support victims. As that criticism mounted, outside humanitarian support began to organize around urgent needs. The Singapore Red Cross said it would pledge about $100,000 and launch a fundraising appeal with the money intended for humanitarian assistance, including search and rescue operations, emergency medical care, and rapid assessments in the worst-hit areas. The immediate priorities now are finding any remaining survivors, treating the injured, and getting relief into communities where the earthquake has overwhelmed local capacity. Search and rescue teams and emergency medical providers typically face a rapidly changing environment after a disaster of this scale because damaged roads, unstable buildings, and incomplete information can slow operations. In Venezuela, those pressures have become more acute as the rescue window narrows. The new fundraising push by the Singapore Red Cross is aimed at helping sustain response work beyond the first hours, when medical, shelter, and assessment needs are still expanding across the affected areas. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.